Hello, my name is Miguel Resendiz. I'm a marketing professional, entrepreneur, and the host of this podcast, Midcast, a program where we discuss how to monetize your talent, ideas, and show examples of people who have successfully done so in the past. In this podcast, we aim to bring the best business and life insights to help you materialize your goals. An open mind will go a long way in this program, so fasten your seatbelts and get ready for the show. Karen Castillo, we have you in this is episode 4? I think we are in episode 4 of Midcast, and thank you for coming. So who is Karen Castillo and what are you doing?
Wow, that's a very open question, but no, thank you for your invite to your podcast, and thank you so much for having me here. Like you said, my name is Karen Castillo. Karen is 25 years old. Karen currently works in the human rights sort of sector. And the reason why I say this at the beginning, it's because it also defines who am I. I'm very passionate about human rights. I consider myself a human rights defender. So I think that's who am I, or something that I could like very easily say about me.
Good. So the way we met each other was pretty much by not protecting human rights, but doing something, of the sort. We met in SFU, Simon Fraser University, for those that don't know what SFU stands for. Yeah, but we met at SFU, and you were at that point you were not the president of ALAS, but you were the vice president or something in that position. And then eventually you became the president of the Association of Latin American Students, which I'm the president of now.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah,
Congrats!
so we're conversing now.
Yeah, no.
Awesome. And I really, back then, I remember I was so impressed because I mean you were a really good leader. You had your ideals, and I think you were kind of really putting responsibilities on people that I hadn't seen before, but I also didn't see how Joao, which was the president before, had done it. But I had seen other organizations being run, and the other organizations seemed very autocrat. People had actual elections. Like they had political campaigns, and it became so corrupt, right? Like
Yes,
when it comes to,
they do.
yeah, like they became so corrupt, and they fought, and then they a lot of the times they kicked out the opposite party of the club, and then they had to form another club, and then you had two
Two
Pakistani,
different
yeah,
clubs.
two Pakistani groups or something like that. Like I think
Yes.
it was with the Pakistani group that actually that happened, and I had friends in both sides, so then I didn't know which side
Yeah, no,
was
it
correct.
becomes messy for people who like these clubs.
Yeah. So, like, unfortunately for us in Alas, we were able to really maintain order in a very informal way, because
Yes,
Latinos are very are
it
famous
was.
for
We were friends first, and it was like a big family, and that's what it made it great. That even if we had little issues, we always like stood together, which I think is great.
so, and that's the thing. I think, like, I was part of it, right? And I remember I was not allowed technically to be part of it until I transferred to Simon Fraser, because I was in FIC at the time. and and you were like, no, 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 come in, jump in, and we will treat you as like part of us, and you sent, and you had like these very basic organizational skills that at the time for me were super important. And like I was like, oh shit, like this group has their shit together. I think
I
I,
tried.
I think for me, because I was at the time like 19, uh for me, when I saw you write, please do this ASAP, I was like, what? Like, this is serious shit, like ASAP? What? Uh,
Oh my
so,
god.
but anyways, going back to the point, uh, you did a great job, and you often, I remember you were advocating to have this scholarship for like the members of the club that had issues. And at that point we were actually looking into starting to donate money, and I think that's the
Yes.
first time that happened with Alas to actually look into donate money rather than just keep all the money that we made, which still there's a lot of money in that account. Like, um, but uh, I remember you and Nico then had that mission kind of,
Yes.
because I talked to Nico about it too, and like that seems to be a really great mission. I mean, I in in my administration really I have to follow it, and you have done it now professionally. So professionally, how do you feel now? I mean, you work in Amnesty International, right? Do you still work there?
Yes, so I work for Amnesty International Canada, and I actually work as a fundraiser, which it's funny considering that. Well, it's not funny. I mean, I really like doing that job even back as a president of ALAS for sort of putting these events together and sort of bringing community together so we could raise funds for a good cause. And that's what I currently do at Amnesty International. I really like my job. I think yeah, now looking at that, at now looking back at that point, I can see how much like joining that club helped me, and it was a lot of experience because yeah, it was basically running like a club, and you had people and you have responsibilities, and you also had money, right? And you also had sort of this mission, and you also represented the Latin American community in the at the university, so that was like very important for me. And I think it was really the beginning of how I became more interested in like human rights and more like activism and like community work and sort of like working together with people. It's something that I really enjoy. So yeah, that's what I currently do. I do many other things on my free time, but I don't know what you want to talk about. If
Well, I'm aware that you also dance Latin music, and
yes.
we went partying to Red Room.
Yes, I also like farting as well. I still like going out. I still like farting a little bit less than before. More responsibilities now, but yes,
But that's a really important thing to touch on, because having responsibilities doesn't mean you don't have fun.
exactly.
So, I mean, a lot of the times I think we're kind of like somehow indoctrinated by TV programs and like YouTube, and also like certain quote unquote coaches that that fun is being in a beach in Cancun or having a lot of
Yes.
money and having cars. But I I'm sure you're having fun or you're enjoying what you're doing. So I have seen your post about the feminist movement in Mexico, which is a really important movement, I think. And and although there's a lot of there's a lot of criticism and a lot of comments from from different sides of the Mexican society,
Yep.
it is also rooted in, I mean, the comments are rooted in Mexican traditions, I think, but also the movement that's happening right now, it's rooted on big violence towards women, right? and
Yes.
and that's something that I think we haven't really listened to, or yeah, like we haven't really listened to, because you know why I think that is. Like, I am a Mexican, and I should be really aware of that. I have a mom, I have a grandma, and I have a lot of women in my family, and I can sleep at night, right? So that that fact makes me feel that I'm not aware of what really is happening there. But then I see you in there, right? You're in Mexico. You work for Amnesty International Canada, but you're in Mexico helping women. And that's kind of brave, because we all know what happens to, journalists in Mexico.
Yes.
Well,
It's a
really,
pretty it's the most dangerous country in the world for journalists currently.
the most dangerous,
Yes,
more
after
dangerous than
even
Saudi Arabia.
no, yeah. I mean it sometimes like some months is like another country, usually Middle East, and it depends on how many journalists are killed by year. But right now
Or
it's like
sometimes some countries in the Middle East are trying to up the competition. I'm like, ah,
yeah,
shit.
it almost seems like a competition, which is
It's
pretty
almost like
bad.
a
Like
competition.
pretty yeah,
Yeah.
of which country violates human rights the most, basically.
Mhm. Well, that's pretty fucked up. So you went to Uganda for your internship. It was an internship or exchange?
Yes. So when I was in my so just a little bit of background. Like I did my undergrad in international studies and political science, and when I started my degree, I used to also be part of like the varsity team at SFU. Swimming was my life, sports were my life.
Mhm.
But when I was like on my second, third year, I started getting very anxious because I saw other of my classmates that they were already like having jobs on the field, doing volunteer positions. They were going on exchange, and I felt that like all my life at that point had been swimming. So I took the huge risk that it was for me to stop swimming, which had been what had like driven me like all my life, what had like defined who I was for all my life. And I decided to go that summer to do like an internship. It was more like an internship more than like an exchange in like an NGO in Uganda. So it was sort of like an exchange internship thing. I worked with an organization called Refugee Law Program, and what we did was basically like interview refugees that were coming from to Uganda from other countries in war, like the DRC. And we were doing this research at that point, and yeah, no, I mean, I loved the experience. Uganda was beautiful. The people there were beautiful, and for me it was like sort of like it really proved that I loved what I had studied, that I wanted to get into like the human rights sector, that I wanted to work with people like more on the ground. And yeah, it was like a great experience overall. So big advice, if I don't know, people are in their second, third years, just go out and explore the world, and just yeah, just do it.
Mhm. Yeah. So when you were in Uganda, were you a little bit exposed to the gay and LGBTQ I think issues that were facing in that country, or were you more involved in a different type of human rights issue?
Oh, I was like more involved with refugee rights, but I mean, you did like, I mean, it's very visible, like the problem. I mean, uh, like one of the things that they told us, sort of the organization when we went there, was how like strict laws are against like people from the LGBTQI community. So even like before arriving, you were warned that like you should be careful about what you said, about how like you behaved, even though like there's a huge privilege into coming from like a Canadian university, like you're like as a sort of an expat. That's what like people that are not from Uganda are called. So it does come from a lot of privilege where you're sort of like a little bit above the law, which is crazy. But yes, like I mean, I've during my human rights work, I've met a lot of people that have like escaped Uganda because of these issues. So yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, so I did a project on that, I think, in my undergrad, in my first year. And I remember I was very impressed that, like it wasn't receiving more media because I mean there's
Yeah.
a death penalty, right? For that. There's a death.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
people are tortured. They're like, yeah, you can be killed. Like it's terrible.
and if you don't say someone gay, I mean if you don't say that that somebody is gay, then you also face like
Yeah,
life.
you face prison. Yeah, basically.
So it gets really really challenging. So I remember a conversation we had after that experience, and I was telling you about it earlier, but I think it's worth mentioning it again. You said that you really love living in places that have a lot of social problems, and that's where you want to be. So tell us a little bit about that, because usually people don't want to be in places where there are a lot of problems. You
Yeah.
okay, so I'm gonna make a bad joke here, but you have the name Karen. Is that
Yes.
the reason why you like problems, Karen?
I think at this point I'm starting to believe it is from all the like all the memes and posts I see on on Facebook, but no. No, I don't. I mean, it's a very like it's a very interesting question, and for me, like every time, like, or well, sometimes I'm asked like, why did I, for example, became like a feminist, right? Or why am I interested in certain issues? Why am I interested in sort of like working on human rights in a country like Mexico, which is so dangerous, where there's so much repression, and so on. And many, like, most people will have like a sort of like a defining moment, either like something happened to them, or they experienced something, or they saw something, or something happened to them. And unfortunately I don't have that amazing story for you. But for me it was more when I started studying politics and when I started studying international studies, and you really learn that the reason why the world is like so fucked up, and I'm sorry about the word, why there's so much poverty, why there's so much discrimination, hate, racism. It's not just because it is. There's reasons. There's like history. There's like a structure. There's a system, and it's made by humans. So for me, knowing that and knowing that this world could be better if leaders were better, if people would unite and ask and demand for this change, like for me there's no reason why I wouldn't do it, like why I wouldn't want to make that change, why I wouldn't want to try with all my living heart and with all my actions to build a better world. And like for me it's just knowledge. Like I can understand that people sometimes, like you say, right, it's hard to get involved in politics to know about these issues if you're not into that area, right? Because like, I mean, we're busy people, like this world is so fast, like, right, you're always scrolling in social media, there's tons of information out there. So I understand that people do not know about this, but what I don't understand is like, if you know it and then you decide not to do something about it, then I just can't do that. So for me, like all these years that I lived in Canada, I feel like a little bit guilty of living there while like I have family here, while like this is my country, while I'm seeing like how things are, and just not be able to do something. Um, and that's all I can say. That's why the fact that I say that I want to live in like a in like a country with, or in a place with social problems, I think at this point is not any place. I think it's Mexico. And back then when we talked, when I just came back from Uganda, the reason why I went to Uganda in the first place was because I wanted to stay away from Mexico, because it was too close to my heart, it was too personal, I got angry very fast. But then like it doesn't matter how much you try, if like if the problems pull you, if you see and you get angry. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's my country, it's the place I know, it's my language, like again, I have family here. So I sort of at some point stopped fighting against that feeling of trying to escape like that sort of feeling of wanting to do something about the things that are wrong, and just sort of embrace it. Of course sometimes like I do get scared, I do like have like double thoughts about it, like I think about like just like staying in Canada and just sort of forgetting and not thinking about that. But I don't know, there's something always that pulls me back. It sounds a little bit like deep and intense, but it's the truth.
So I think what you're saying, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You were saying that you want you want to make a difference, and you want to make sure that the life of the majority is better, right? I mean, even not the majority, but like the marginalized people too, make sure that they are covered. It is funny that we as a society expect the next iPhone to be much better, but we don't expect society to
Yes.
be much better the next year. Okay, three, two, one.
Oof.
Uh,
Okay.
so you were saying about okay. So I don't know if I got that code in there on time. So basically, it is funny. I mean, based on what you say, that people expect technology or an iPhone to get much better the next year, right? Year over year. But then they don't expect society to get much better year over year. They want society to be, the same imperfect mechanism that is for forever. And that's a bit scary, because so we want artificial things to improve, but we want the things that actually, matter to not.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird, but I think that's just part of how. I mean, you know what? Maybe we should have a Steve Jobs for feminism. Like, imagine someone can get us hype for like a feminist society, or someone can get us hype for a society where we treat people, equally, and we give equal chance. Because I feel right now, when you say, "Oh, I want people to be equal," or not equal, but I want everybody to feel the same opportunity. It doesn't cause uh,
Much.
much. Well, it causes enrage. It doesn't cause a positive reaction. It gets enraged uh, from people in general. So I know people. So like I know people sometimes hate on feminists, and that's a really difficult for me to. Okay, so like I'm not gonna get too political here in this. What I'm gonna say is everybody has a reason why they're angry. Nobody's angry because they're bored.
Yes. Yeah.
If someone is being angry, 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 well, it may be because they killed her daughter, or it may be because they raped her many times, or it may be because they rape her many times. You're asking the police to do something and nobody does anything. Maybe they laugh about you. Maybe they rape you in the police station, right? Right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, yeah, no, like violence in, at least in Mexico, like the violence against women, it's brutal. Like whenever you read cases about like femicides, that's what the term is, that it's the killing of women because of their gender. And it involves like brutal violence. It often includes like sexual violence. It includes exposing the body of women after their death, or sort of, yeah, damaging the body after women are killed. And every single case that we read, it's brutal. It's not like it's terrible. And it starts, and the thing that it's so outrageous is that you would expect that the killing of these women, it's the worst parts, the brutality that these killings are like. I mean, the brutality of the killings should be enough. But then you have the state violence, that it's when police officers do not care. They do not investigate crimes. They tell moms or family members that these women got suicide, or that, or if they're missing, they say that maybe they left with their boyfriend, that they're pregnant, that they will come back, and they don't activate mechanisms that are in law, like that they should start looking for women right away because of the extreme violence of that exists in the country. So yeah, I mean, I usually hear, or like webinars or talks or protests where there's family members of victims of femicide in Mexico, and they all agree that one of the worst violences that they suffer is not the killing sometimes of their daughters, is the like instead like the state violence that they live before, how they're ignored, how there's no justice, how they're like re-victimized, how they say that their daughters have the fault to be killed in these brutal ways. I mean, I don't have right now like data, like specific data, but Mexico is a country that has 99 impunity, like 99% of impunity levels. So only 1% of all crimes in the country have like a sentence. And that's just a sentence. We're not even saying that like if people actually go to jail. So you're talking that 99% crimes do not have justice. So Mexico has a collapsed, and that's the word, it has a collapsed judiciary system. Like there's no other way of explaining it. So women are not protected when they're alive. Women are not protected when they're missing. Like nobody cares if they disappear, only family members, only friends. And women are not protected even when they're killed. So it's pretty brutal. And when you talk about all the backlash, all the hate that the feminist movement in Mexico gets from the society, like that you wouldn't expect, right? That you would expect that society is as like exhausted as like many in the movement. We are exhausted. We're angry. We're tired. But I do think that hate towards the movement comes from people, or from a sector of society that is afraid of change, because change is scary, right? And I do think that this, like the world in general, not only talking about the feminist movement, we need radical changes. We're seeing it with the pandemic, right? We have, like you said, I think we're living in one of the, like in the times with most technology in the world, and right now we have a virus that has like stopped us completely. And one of my beliefs is that it's not the virus itself, it's that countries all around the world stopped investing in health. And that's why hospitals get overrun. Hospitals stopped involving in social care, and that's why people go out to work. I mean, in Mexico, people cannot stop working. And it's as simple as that. 70% of the Mexican population works in the informal sector. So they cannot, they don't have like any sort of social insurance that protects them. And that's the fault of governments. I mean, I think this virus, yes, it's real. Yes, it's like it's pretty deadly for certain sectors of society. But I think that what has made us so vulnerable is how much inequality has grown over the years, and that's the fault of governments, and that's also our fault as societies because we keep going, right? And you see it in people right now. Everyone is talking about going back to the like to the normal times. People are desperate to travel. People are desperate to like go back to for the economy to revamp, and I think that's normal because again, like we're humans. We don't live in this earth for a long time. So I think it's hard to grasp like how much change this world needs, and I think that's why when social movements come and they sort of shed light into how bad the world is and how much change we need, I do think that a natural response from some people is to to be angry at it, right? People are scared of these changes, like of having their lives like day-to-day lives like yeah, like yeah, like I don't know. I sorry, my suddenly I stopped thinking in English, so please ask me something.
No, and that makes sense. I mean, um, one of the things I wanted to kind of bring to the conversation is about um, how when you're bringing in change to society, especially in today's, I don't know, I wasn't alive before, and honestly I haven't done really a lot of political science studies, but I know that the society in general in the Western world is divided. It's very, I mean, there is a big division, and a lot of the times it comes from extreme points of view in both sides.
Yes.
Would you say, because I honestly don't think feminism or the feminist movement is a left-wing movement, but do you or is only a left-wing movement? But I think it should really be a movement
Mm-hmm.
that should be, appealing to people in the right too. The reason why I say this is because uh, look, I empathize with people in both sides because I know that they are not moving. I mean, the interests of other people shouldn't be a reason for you to say, "Oh, these people are stupid. People in the right are stupid, or people on the left are stupid." No, I think the reason why they have these groups is because they have similar interests. But I think when it comes to feminism, in
Mm-hmm.
particular, well, for one, I think there is a misogynist kind of resistance from the system that has been shaped like this, right? And
Yeah.
therefore, there is a this resistance is more powerful than the actual information of the movement. Recently, in a marketing class, I learned that for for every one negative comment on your brand, you need at least 10 positive comments, or at least 10 times the effort to offset that negative
One
comment.
negative comment.
Yeah.
Wow.
So one negative
That's
comment is
interesting.
10 times as powerful as one positive
Yeah.
comment. So right now, what I'm seeing here, and I'm really trying to bring it back to my expertise, which is marketing, um, right?
That's
And I'm
great.
trying,
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand it in the best way I can. But the way I see it is feminism has a lot of, I mean, I remember when I first heard the word and my friend told me I'm a feminist. And that was when I was like 15 or 16. And I was scared. I was like, what? You're a feminist? What
What's
is this?
that? Yeah.
And it was not because I was like girls are crazy. It was more like feminist. Okay, so the last time I hear anything ending with is was communist, and I thought, oh shit, that
Yeah.
it's probably not communist, but it sounds like
It
some
sounds
weird thing.
similar there.
Yeah, or like I also heard machista, right? Which is a negative word, and if I think, well, what's the opposite of machista? Well, feminista, right? Which is
Yes.
Spanish, which is feminist. So then I was thinking, well, but none of them are good because I kind of associated the ending of the word ist with a negative meaning. And maybe I think this resistance that the market has, or not the market, sorry, this resistance that the system has put on the brand of market. Oh, fuck! Why do I keep saying market? This resistance that that the system is putting on feminists uh, is really being met with more resistance, right? Because like the feminist movement, the way when I see it, especially the photos you have been posting recently, actually, uh, it is a movement of like counter resistance, right? Okay, you
Yes.
don't protect us, then we're gonna rebel and we're gonna show you that we're also strong, and then you kind of and then it is some sort of like, yeah, it's a rebellious movement that is really well oriented. I think it has a really nice goal. It isn't about taking over the government and no matriarchy is the thing. No, I think what you guys are really trying to achieve is noble, and it is important. Nobody wants to have all of a sudden your daughter disappearing, right?
Yeah.
I think the motivation shouldn't be questioned. Maybe the methods could be questioned, but again, it isn't an organization, and it is just a bunch of people that were hurt by the
Yeah,
society.
no. And yes, and I'm sorry to interrupt you because like there's so many things that I want to say about what you have said.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will stop.
No, no, it's just like they just keep like piling up in my head and then I will not remember. So like I think that first when even you talk about marketing and for example there needs to be a huge distinction or distinguish between like the feminist movement for example in Canada and the feminist movement in Mexico, because like some like for me I could say that I became a feminist or I became engaged with feminism in Canada, and it was a word that it's very well accepted. Like for example like I used to work as a waitress in a restaurant and like my colleagues would say it, right? It didn't it was more of like most women in Canada define themselves as feminist, and we cannot compare like violence in Canada against women and violence in Mexico against women, right? Like there's a huge advancement in women rights in Canada, although we need to like do talk about for example indigenous women in Canada, that there's a whole other story. But that's the first thing, and if I want to say something about the feminist movement in Mexico is that I would say that it's reaching like I would say that it's reaching its peak of action because I don't know how much people have seen news or they see news about the feminist movement in Mexico, but a little bit what you're talking about is that women in Mexico are becoming more and more and more prone to take like what we call direct action, which involves like destroying like glasses, destroying like bus like stops. They do like graffiti paintings in buildings, in like statues, in monuments. And I would say they're becoming a little bit more, or we are becoming more and more aggressive. And I do think it has to do with the fact of basically how much the movement has been ignored for so many governments from the right, from the left. I mean, in the last presidency in Mexico, we had a very like right sort of middle center political system, and right now we're like the president is supposed to be from the left, but for women it keeps being the exact same thing, right? And violence has increased. It has been increasing steadily for over the years, and like I was saying before, the system for investigating, for making justice is completely collapsed. So I do think like women have, or the movement in Mexico, a part of the movement has reached like a very like angry like violent point. And again I cannot undermine it because I support it, because I think that when you have this brutal violence from one place coming, right, like it's the response. But another thing that I wanted to add is that I think a reason why the movement is also so misunderstood by many sectors of society, it's because of marketing, actually, and how the movement has been marketed by journalists, by the government. Because, for example, like a protest is huge, like right. Sometimes, like I mean, the last protest, which was on the 8th of March, International Women Day, was massive. Like I had friends that were there. I was in Canada, So I couldn't join the protest in Mexico City. It was huge. Like there were like groups of or organizations that it took them like 3 hours to walk, just to start walking, of how huge the protest was. And but like we know what sells, right? Journalists know what sells, and violence sells. So you could have like a protest of like 10,000 people, and like the next day you will only see the notes from like the group that did these sort of violent acts, if you want to call them like that. So that's why I feel like a lot of the perception of people is just centered in like the violence, and against, I just want to put it on on quotation marks, violence, if I must call it like that, that the movement has. But it's a huge movement, and even myself, I cannot speak for the entire movement. The movement is not only in the streets, it is in NGOs, it is in universities, it's in the academia, it is everywhere. And it's a very diverse movement. I mean, you will have like left-wing feminist, right-wing feminist, like, and it's a social movement, and social movements, nobody controls them. It's not like you get invited to the club. It's not like when there's a protest you receive your invitation and we all agree, because that would be very hard. So it's formed by, like, the movement is formed by many different sectors. So I think even when we talk about the feminist movement in Mexico, there really needs to be, or if we want to understand it well, there really needs to be that distinction in which movement are we talking about? The one that is occupying buildings, the one that is like doing research, the one that it's on the government, like, and that's sort of the things that I wanted to say.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, like I mean, I have a lot of friends who oftentimes focus on the negative. Yeah, just in the negative aspect of what, or not the negative aspect, but
But they
negative
think it's the
outcome.
negative aspect. Yeah.
Well, it is kind of negative. It's the negative outcome of the feminism movement in Mexico, at least, which, we have seen the videos that journalists, showed usually when they attack a random old dude in the street, and like this is very similar to how police brutality is portrayed sometimes, because we see the bad, but we don't see the good, right? So then we think police are all bad, and I think that's the same sort of issue that's happening with the feminist movement in Mexico. Oh, I saw all the things I saw about feminism was bad, so the whole movement must be bad, right? And it is
Yeah.
scary, and it is, like, to be honest, like, you and I studied in Canada, so we have a very mixed background, and then I think that allows us to understand this better, because we can see it from the outside and we can see it from the inside. And then from the inside, it really looks scary, because sometimes a few things, I mean, a few movements are like, wow, like this is like what is happening, right? Like I have never seen that in history in Mexico, at least. You could see
Yeah.
these movements of um, like the people with the green bandana, which you have a photo of like that in your profile for
Oh, like the SZLN.
yeah, like the green
Oh
bandana,
no.
the green
Oh
bandana,
yeah, the abortion, like yeah, like
abortion, yeah.
the
and
abortion sort of feminist
and
side
that
of.
and that's another whole topic that hopefully we have some time to dive in, but let me just kind of explain this idea. So when my grandma sees the feminist movement, she is not really seeing what it really is like. She's seeing a delinquent movement, right? and
Yes.
and and when I see the feminist movement, it took me a lot of years of dedication to understand it. And um, yeah, maybe I don't even understand it now. So that's the whole thing. That's why I wanted to talk to you, because I don't really understand it. And oftentimes I'm guilty of thinking, wow, what's happening here? And is this going in the right direction or not? Because it is decentralized. It is not centralized. And then
Yeah.
and there are good things about, I prefer it to be decentralized than it being centralized, because then when it becomes centralized, that means that there is individual uh,
Power.
very individual power that's moving there, and that is very, very selfish. But decentralization is good, because then everybody's fighting for their own for their own motivations, and when they are in the same motivations, that means it's something good. So my point is, you as a feminist, you really love to fight for human rights, and and you are privileged. Honestly, I mean, you and I are
Yes.
privileged, and we have both come from privilege. What motivated you to be from a position of privilege to now wanting to be in a position of danger?
I don't- that's something that my mom asks me every day when I go to a protest or something. I don't know. For me, it's the fact of, like, again, I think it comes back to what I explained at the very beginning of knowledge. Like for me, there's like my mind just cannot like accept the level of violence that exists against women in Mexico, for example, and not wanting to do everything I can to stop that. And I would like to explain it with something more concrete, with something like, again, like a beautiful story or something. But like I mean, maybe my story comes from the fact of studying these issues, like during my human rights work, while I was like studying politics, while I was studying international studies, like working at Amnesty International, that does some research into like human rights violations. Really, the cases, like the individual stories that you hear about femicides, about rape, about state violence, they're so brutal. They're so like you couldn't imagine that someone was capable of so much hate, or of so much like, yeah, of so much hate. Like I cannot explain it in other way, that like just not trying to do something about it. Like it just, like I just can't. And I've tried, because it's honestly exhausting. Like for me, I mean, I have lost friendships over like political views. But I mean, it does come to a point where, I mean, I understand that you do not understand the whole thing, right? Or that you don't agree with everything. But like I have had friends that have said, like, I wish they would kill all these women, right? Like protesting. And for me, that's like, why would I want someone like that in my life? uh I mean, it's even harder for me to sometimes engage with family members, because like you say, it's hard when you become so passionate about something, and when you dedicate so much of your time, so much of your effort, like you say, when you even put yourself at risk for something that you believe in. I would say that that's the reason I believe in the movement. I believe that I'm not like other worlds are different. I believe that another reality is different, and that might be very utopic at some point. But I don't know. Like I like dreaming that that's possible, and for me, it is what I'm passionate about. It's like what I like enjoy doing. Like I love like meeting with like my feminist friends in Mexico. I love going with them to protest, but I also love like talking to them. And like, I mean, there's a lot of work that it's done behind the scenes, that it's not only protesting, and I love that. So that's everything I can say.
Mhm. Yeah, that, I mean, to me that's interesting. And look, I made this I really, the intention of this podcast is for people to understand, where you guys are coming from, but also, I told you at the beginning, I kind of created this whole thing, this whole podcast, to explain young Miguel what this whole thing is about, right? um,
Yes.
Look, you mentioned something important, and this is a hot topic, because every time I bring it up, I get in trouble, but I love it.
Don't do it. No, I'm kidding.
No,
Go
look,
for it.
look, Karen, because I think I can talk about that with you, because this is my true belief, and I actually believe in this, because this is the whole reason why I'm doing the podcast. Anyways, there's a lot of people that have said that, and I have read that in the comments. What you said about women. The Sorry, let me recap. There are a lot of people in the comments of like this post saying that the narcos or the drug dealers should kill them all. I've read that many times, and I'm
Like
scared.
that drug dealers should kill all like women, or like
Feminists, all
feminists.
the
Oh my
feminists.
god, I haven't read those ones, but yeah, like I'm not surprised.
I have read those, and when I read it, then I'm like, what? This guy is stupid. Like, okay, you cannot put drug dealers on top of feminists. Like, no,
Yeah, no, it's a huge
that's my
comparison.
opinion. You
Yeah.
cannot, like, in terms of social value, or like the value that they provide to humanity, shouldn't be the drug dealers better than feminists, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of my first of all, I think if we are in that position as a society, then I'm afraid.
We're already lost.
But then, again, I don't agree that we should lose our friendships because of these issues, because
Mhm.
they're your friends for a reason. I mean, they're your friends because something happened that
Well,
you know,
I should say like not very close friends. It's like that people on Facebook that you have, but like that maybe you haven't spoken like a
okay.
100 years. Because if it's like really your like close friend, I don't think I would become like really close friends with somebody who like would think that. So like, and actually like yeah, most of my very good friends, although they're not like maybe they're not part of the movement, but like they respect it. Like there's a sort of respect, and I think that's like what it's good. But yeah, I should have said like those people that you have on Facebook that you have never talked like in, and I not like they probably do not even remember you. You don't remember that you deleted them, and
Okay,
life can go on.
I see. So to me, like, it is a big issue when people when people call for other people to lose their platform to speak, or the platform to say their opinion, even though that what you say is actually hate speech, because you're promoting someone
Yeah,
and other people. So that's complete bullshit, and that is actually legal, at least most of
yeah,
the places in the first world. So and people should remember that, to be fair. But when it comes to people being ignorant and saying this kind of stuff, I mean, I don't think I always think that, or most of the time, think that hate comes from ignorance, right? uh,
yeah,
so I remember one day I was cycling in Mexico. I was there was some sort of like cycling group of like 200 people. So you always met everybody from the city in there. And it was every Wednesday at night. And I met like this guy, and I was reading some sort of philosophy somewhere. And this philosopher, it was a book that I was assigned by a prof. And this philosopher said every human being can change because that's our nature to change. And then I'm like, that's pretty cool. And then somehow I applied it to homosexuality. I was like, well, you can change, right? So you can change
yeah.
your sexual preference. And I told this guy about it, and he's like, oh shit. Well, I wish that was true, because that in that way I will just change from being gay to being heterosexual. And then I was like, what? This guy doesn't, I mean, I couldn't predict that he was homosexual, right? And I was like, well, I fucked it up. And then yeah, I said like I said something that probably hurt him, and I said, I'm sorry. And then the guy said, well, don't be sorry, at least you told me. Now let me tell you about it. And then he told me about his experience. I never thought that again. I never thought homosexuality was an individual decision or something that could be changed. So my point here is, there will be people saying dumb shit, and there will be people saying stupid stuff and thinking and believing them, actually believing them. And education and communication, even though even though they don't get it from you, they may get it from a book, they may get it from a TV show, they may get it from a random person cycling the street. They will, if you open the opportunities and you give them a platform to be stupid and be dumb, they'll probably get it, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it's something that always within the human rights sector at work, well, like when you are an act, like it's something that it's always very discussed, like how much it's your job to educate people and how much people should educate themselves. Now, like what I think is that I have always been very like open to talk about about these issues, right? Like I'm not the person who expects you to know everything about the feminist movement like right now, or because I understand that these issues are hard to understand. Like for me, I discovered them during 6 years of university studies, like through theory, like research. Like it was not like woo like for fun. And that's why I'm interested. But they do come from a history, they do come from politics, they do come from systems, so they're like very like deep issues. And same with, like you say, like with racism, with many other issues that are hot topic or like contested issues. They're difficult topics to talk about, and they're also difficult because they cross with the personal, right? Because of like your identity, of who you are, and so on. So I'm always open to keep talking with people about that. That's one of the reasons why I decided to start the podcast that I have with my friends, where we try to talk about these issues so other people know about it, that they learn about it. And I love communication. It's one of the areas where I'm most interested within, like the political side, within the human rights, how you communicate social movements, how you communicate these values so people understand them.
What's the
Um,
name of your podcast?
So it's in Spanish and it's called La Brújula de la Nación, which means the compass of the nation. It was a project for a class, so the like the name was not very well thought, but now we liked
What
it.
class?
And
What class was this for?
so this year, before the pandemic started, I was taking a certificate on public relations at UFT, and it was one course on communications and social marketing or something like that, like social media, and you had to do a podcast or a blog. And I decided to do it and start talking about like human rights issues. And my goal was always to like sort of reach a different audience that was not like the human rights sector that we all know about these issues, but to try to expand it a little bit more. So like if my mom wants to know more about like something that is happening, that she has like these podcasts where she can come and hear about like any issue in Mexico, but through like a feminist lens, through like a human rights lens. So sort of like really pushing like the social justice approach to like political issues. So yeah, we talk a lot about feminism. We talk a lot about like other issues. Um, but something that I wanted to say about like what you were saying, of how some people lose friendships over like these issues, is that something that I have also experienced is like you get tired. Because for example, right now, like and it usually happens during protests, right? That happen in Mexico. Maybe you reach out to me and you say, Karen, what happened? Like, I don't agree. And for you it's your one conversation about the issue, but maybe I already talked to 10 other people or 15 other people, and I try to explain like or defend or the position, right? And I read all the comments on Facebook like you were mentioning. So I think that sometimes this sort of like anger that you might get from some people, it comes from like tiredness, it comes from exhaustion into like trying to explain people why the movement exists, into so like I do think it's a mix of like, yes, we need education, and we need to be open to talk about these issues and share them and educate people, but I also feel that people should be open to also receive this information. Because many times I also get people who come and they tell me, oh well, Karen, you're very involved in this, right? But then they just throw at me what they think, and I'm like, well, you're not open to hearing about me. So it's not like you really want to learn or really want to have a discussion. You just want to like tell me your point of view, and you don't care about mine. So I think that's a bit like it's a process of learning how to educate people about this, but also people of how to of being open. Like if you're really interested and you really want to know, then go and ask. But if it comes from like you just don't agree and you just want to hear your make your voice heard with a friend that it's passionate about these issues, like maybe take it to the other side. I don't know, it's complicated because it touches on like on again on your identity, and like you said, right, it can be, right now we're talking about women's rights, but it could be like race, it could be nationality, and it really touches on on who you are. So I think that's why sometimes it becomes also very difficult to talk about these issues.
I see. Um, so this may be a really difficult question to ask you, but do you think sometimes feminism, or some, not feminism, I'm not gonna say feminism, I'm not gonna blame the entire movement, but do you think sometimes feminists go too far?
Yes, I think the movement itself, and it has its own issues, like, and there's divides within the movement, because again, like we do all have the ideals, and there's a theory, and there's like we base our thinking in theory and in statistics, and but at the end of the day, we're also human beings, right? And we have our own egos, we have our own like biases, we have our own things. So I would say that like I would say that sometimes we even within the feminist movement, we believe that just because you name yourself feminist, you're not capable of violence, right? Or you're not capable of hurting other people, or and that's not true. Like I think we all should always remember that we can always hurt people with our words, with our actions, and always rethink what we're doing. Like, why are we doing it? And that's something that I always try to talk with my friends here. Um, I'm part of some collective of women, and I always try to remember. Well, if this is what we want to do at this protest, why do we want to do it? Right? There needs to be a reason. So yeah, I definitely think that sometimes like the objectives are lost, or you don't think it like thoroughly. The movement is not perfect, it will never be perfect, but I think at the end of the day you have to remember what we're fighting for, uh, and at the end of the day the violence is there. Like 10 now, before it used to be 10 women per day are killed in Mexico, now it's 11. So as much as we would like to perfect the movement, 11 women per day are being killed. Like, and tomorrow another 11 and another two. So like I feel like there's also like always needing to remember that the violence out there, it's always greater than the violence that we even as a movement are capable of causing. And that's what I believe.
Yeah, definitely. And it is very, I mean, like when you look at the statistics, you don't see that in even war-torn countries, right? You don't see, you will expect that from a few countries, but you don't see that in all the countries like that you will expect it to be. And Mexico is one of these countries that's so close to the West. I mean, it's pretty much the West. It is pretty much one of the main economies in the world. And even though a lot of people don't see it that way, I mean, it is one of the significant countries in the world, but we still have issues that resemble Middle Ages.
Yeah, no, they resemble like war, and that's what people have forgotten about Mexico, that we have been in a war since 2006. And yes, it's weird because the country sort of still runs and you still have like a normal life, but and this violence has become very normalized. Like we like people here and I think we have seen it in the pandemic. Like people see the death toll, and well, like you have had that death toll for kidnapping and murder and missing women. I mean, it really like violence is so brutal here that you even stop seeing it, and that's why it's so scary. I think that that's why, and that's something that also the movement, coming back again to the feminist movement, that it also wants to shed light on, that women get so like I mean society gets so enraged when they see this destruction of property, or these sort of paintings in walls and monuments that are taken down the next day, right? But they don't get that angry when they see these statistics, because it has become normal. It has become, well, one more disappeared person, well, one more killed person, one more. So the fact that people are more outraged sometimes about like this violence, and again using quotation marks, that the movement causes against this brutal and systemic violence. I mean, it really speaks about the depth of the violence in Mexico, and the problem of how people have just accepted it, and people have just sort of learned how to live around it, and sort of hoping for the best, expecting the worst, sort of thing. But it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. So I'm gonna bring it a little bit to one of my main not concerns, but I think this is the most valuable question I probably will ask you. today. And this is, how do you live of your passion? Because, no, seriously, because living off of your passion is often seen as a rich kid privilege, right? You can live off the arts, you can live off writing articles, you can live off academia, and you. I know that you had enough money to study here, but I don't know if you had scholarships or anything. So I'm not assuming. What I'm trying to ask for you for is, maybe give the message to the people that believe that they need to have a 9 to 5 job in a logistics company to to get through their life, and on the side, maybe on the weekends, go to protests and stuff. But you're actually full time on your passion. You are in Amnesty International. You did your internship in human rights, and you're planning to move from your place of privilege to a place of danger. So I'm pretty sure that you probably have a plan already. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my plan is, well, I think it depends on really defining what you want on life and who you want to be. And and for me, I mean, I have had the huge privilege of being able to have like that 9 to 5 job and living in an extremely wealthy country and privileged country where you don't have to worry about a lot of insecurity issues. Of course, economic, yes, because like Canada it's so expensive. Um, but I wasn't happy. Like if I have to be honest, like and I think at the end of the day, some people prefer material things or they prefer that safety net, right, over happiness, or maybe the material things make you happy, the comfortness makes you happy, and that's okay. Like I think at the end of the day, people just need to be honest about who you are, like what you want to do in life and what makes you happy. And for me, like what makes me happy is this. It's like it's my job with, like, I mean, defending human rights. It's like last weekend I was in the Yucatan Peninsula visiting some Maya indigenous communities, and I loved it, like because I learned so much from people. Like, I mean, and yes, it comes through like a huge discomfort, at least for me, right, that I've always have like this house and these services and access to all these things. But for me, learning more about indigenous communities here, it's more precious than that, for example, traveling to Cancun, right, that are super close and staying in a 5-star hotel resort. And again, maybe I'm privileged enough that I already live that, and I can say, well, I prefer learning another way of living. I prefer doing something that I think for myself it's more meaningful. And 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 yes, and my plan is to sort of follow my heart. I'm scared of course of taking a bad, I don't know, like a bad decision, because right now my life is good. Like my job is good. It's a good pay. I cannot complain at all. Um, but I mean, like if at the end of the day you're not fully happy, and you know there's a world out there that fulfills you as a person, professionally, personally, then I want to follow that. And I don't know, maybe we can have another interview in 2 years or 3 years and see how that worked. But yeah, I think it's just being honest about what you love. And if you love your 9 to 5 job and meet your friends after and go for a drink and then go and sleep and watch Netflix all night, I mean, that's really amazing as well. So it really, it's, I think it's about, again, defining what you want from life and who you are and what makes you happy.
Perfect. Perfect. So I mean, I like that answer. So my point was a bit more towards, is there is there a market for being a social justice warrior, for example?
Well, it's, I mean, like you have the NGO sector, like the human rights organizations, that it's a job. I mean, it's 9 to 5. I mean, working with Canada, Amnesty Canada, it's a 9 to 5 job. You go to the office. So yeah, I mean, there is a market. You can also work for the government, for example. and try to change the world within the government. You can join, for example, the Human Rights Commission of Mexico and things like that. Of course, if you want to join like a guerrilla movement, sort of like no, like you would have to like basically live your life. But yeah, there's opportunities of work. And for me it's also like, so like I dedicate again like my sort of professional life to this, like my 9 to 5 job, but I also like doing it on my free time. And I think that's what most of like some of my friends do. They some have their 9 to 5 jobs, and like later like their hobby is to like watch documentaries about human rights and go to protests and read books about the issues. I mean, it's like a career, right? Like, but it's like a something that you like. um it just gets a bit more intense, more dangerous in Mexico, of course. And yeah.
Yeah. So I have a, I mean, I always have the theory that, or since I was in university, sorry, since I was in high school, I always had the idea that the change is made in the micro, not in the macro. So what this means is like it is your individual actions to that will actually drive change in the society, and you cannot really expect the change to always come, or not always, possibly never come from the top, from the macro. um, and I mean, this is a very stupid comment, but I'm gonna risk making it anyway so that I can get educated. But I see that for the past 100 years or more, Mormons have been going door to door to educate people on their religion, right? Um, and although I'm not advocating that feminists go door to door to have like, uh, can I have a discussion? Can I come in and discuss about feminism? You want to know our Lord and Savior feminist?
Yeah, we should create a cult or like a religion. I do agree with that.
Yeah, no, I'm not advocating for that, but I'm always I believe that that's where change actually originates from. Because look, I don't know if you have read the story of this guy. He was a feminicide. Is that how you say it? Like the guy that kills feminists, or the guy it is a guy that kills women, just like that. So
Oh, like a yeah, feminicida, like a femicide.
yeah,
Yes.
feminicide. Yeah, let's go for it. So that guy is in Toluca. You live near Toluca, right?
Yes.
So he's from Toluca. They call him the monster of Toluca. I don't know if you read of him. So I listened to his tape talking to his mom. He's calm. He doesn't have any remorse for doing that. Um, and then I was thinking, well, he's just a psychopath. He lacks empathy. And then I hear that he is worried about his pets. And then I'm thinking, this is not a psychopath. This is not a
Yeah.
psychopath. This is a person that truly hated women. And 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 what the fuck did his family do, or what the fuck did his environment do to incentivize this hate, right? And because I don't think you're born hating everything. You're born being a nice baby most of the time, unless you're Damien 666. But usually you're born a nice baby, and then your environment kind of shapes you to do something. And this guy was completely empathetic towards a cat and two dogs, right? And to his mom as well. He was empathetic to his mom, but he was not empathetic to the girl that he killed, to his dad that he also killed. He was not empathetic to like the other three women that he killed previously, like 6 years earlier. So then I'm thinking, well, this guy is driven by some sort of hate, and I just cannot understand it. I don't aim at understanding it. But when I talked earlier about me possibly criticizing the methods but not the movement, is like, overall you must have a KPI. You should try to aim at having your conversion rate. I mean, really, you need to go from a system that doesn't know what the hell is going on, and then repels you, to a system that slowly understands you, and then understands that they need to pass legislation on this. Because right now we both know Mexican politicians, they are gonna pass legislation that gets them votes and that gets them in office to steal money for another 6 years. That's what's gonna happen. You know what got the current president in there? Well, saying that the brown people are the best in Mexico, saying that poor people are the best and they're the ones that should decide. You know what? I'm not against those ideas. I think it is kind of true. Most Mexicans are brown or have some brown heritage. Fine. Most Mexicans are poor. Well, yeah, they must have the say of what's happening in the government, but they should also say, look, there, six, sorry, 11 women get killed every day. We need to do something, and it is not really happening for them, and I'm really pissed about that.
Well, like, and something that I do want to say is that there has been huge like advancements in terms of like women's rights, at least at the political like law level. And many of these changes have been pushed by the feminist movement. And I do think that the movement is growing and that it's winning more and more hearts because, I mean, we saw it on the last Women's March. It was, I mean, women from all types of society came, like even if they were like rich, like poor, from out of the cities, from inner, like it was a mass. It was one of the biggest march, like seen in the country. So I do think there's like the movement has achieved, like like its KPIs of growing, if you wanna call it like that, and more and more acceptance. Like I mean, I've even noticed with my family. I don't know if they're tired of listening to me and or if they have really bought the message, but like my mom now gets it, right. And again, she might not be like agree with all the methods that we use, but like she remembers, right, like the violence against again. And that has happened with other friends. I've seen more friends getting like intense involved around the issue. So I do think there's like that positive change. Mexico actually has, like, it's surprising, but Mexico has pretty good laws in terms of like uh protecting, or at least trying to protect women. And those laws have been achieved due to like the feminist movement. And when I say the feminist movement, again, it's women who protest, women who take buildings, women who are in the academia, women who are in political parties. So it has been a truly like the movement. The problem it's like still when you implement those laws. And of course there's like, again, I'm saying the system is collapsed, but if we want to sort of see the black and white in all the in this like sort of story or in this issue, I do think there's advancements. And I think that the fact that the movement is saying like, well, like we don't even care anymore if you agree or not with what we're doing, but we're gonna keep doing it. It's sort of like, it sort of shows how determined women have become in the country. And even like, I mean, risking to be arrested, risking to like be hit by police, risking to be ostracized by society, and still believing in what we believe. I think it also shows how important it is for us, and how we're like like we always say we're not taking a step back. And I think like most women, we mean it when we say that, at least for us, there's no step back in the movement. And yes, and I mean, we aim to accommodate people, we aim to make you feel uncomfortable, we aim to create these discussions. It's not like we are not aiming to just winning your hearts, we're aiming to be angry. We're not trying to also be nice and polite, because I think that moment has passed, and that's what like some people have not yet understood about the movement, that the movement is not asking permission anymore, it's not asking to even win people's hearts. And yeah, like you say, again, we can go again to the conversation whether that's right or wrong, whether that will work or not. But at the end of the day, the movement has reached this point because, again, a history and a response from the government. And it is where it is because of what has happened. So
Yeah,
I would
for
say
sure.
that.
I mean, I do believe that you guys have done a great job, for sure. And what I mean, I criticize not the movements, but
The
the
forms,
form, and
the
like,
forms, the
yeah, the form,
tactics.
yeah, the tactics, maybe the strategy is just, it really comes from a place of like wanting to help, right? And it brings me to this place where sometimes I'm I'm told, if you want to be a good ally, don't say that. Oftentimes, don't criticize what we do, just do what we want you to do as a good ally. So then when I hear that, I sometimes I'm like, well, first of all, um like, it just really sounds problematic to me that now I'm called an ally, but I have restrictions on what I can try to help you with, because now it's not the value I think I can provide, it's the value you want me to provide. And then I'm kind of like, I feel like limited to, right? And and obviously I know that this movement and the people in this movement is under a lot of pressure, and there is under a lot of, it is like if you're driving at 120 kilometers per hour every day consistently, you're always afraid that you may die, and you're angry that your friend died already. So I understand where this anger comes from, but I think that, sometimes this criticism, and this, I don't know, like, I feel that saying that if you want to be an ally, you should do what we want you to do. It's almost like your opinion matters, but less than ours, and I think it kind of drives some sort of divide again. And my point is that if this movement is gonna keep growing strong, it will need of men, right? You'll need the help of men, and the same way any sort of other legislation, when it comes to people of color, you will need help from people from other from other color, right? And it will need the help from people that are driving the current system. So how will you go about it? Like, I mean, do you think I'm kind of crazy and oblivious to you guys' movement, or is it just like, I don't know.
Well, there's different responses I could give. I could give the very theory based response that we usually get, that it's like, I mean, I think there's things that you could ask yourself, for example, of whether and this is something that I sort of mentioned before, whether you're sort of need or not need, but like when you say like, well, I want to help, right? And I want to say my opinion, whether it comes from like this sort of like historic sort of tendency of men of taking leadership on things, right? And of wanting to show us how we could do it, right? And what women usually say is that, well, the feminist movement is really for women. So like it's like, I know that you might not agree with us, but like we are deciding now, right? Because of this historic imbalance of power. So that would be sort of my very theoretical response to you. Going more in depth, or going more like as friends, of like a more
Now
uh
you can do the mean response to me.
no, I'm not mean. I'm not mean. No, that was more of my mean response of basically saying that
Yeah,
I feel like men do have a tendency to want to say like how the movement should like
for sure.
like should be, and I think it comes from this historic point of, for the first time maybe you're feeling excluded from something and you just want to be part of it. But no, but I mean, I do think what you say, it's true, because I at the end of the day we do live in a society, and and for votes, right? And for legislation, again, you do need the other people, and hate has grown too much in this world to sort of like not think about how you can build bridges instead of burning them. um but yeah, I mean, it's a tricky issue for me. The way I see it, it's, and this is something that I've said to other friends, male friends, it's that like what I always recommend, and for me it's a recommendation, because at the end of the day it's very violent for me to tell you what to do, right? It goes against like what you're trying to achieve if I just order you what you have to do. But what I always recommend you is like, well, if something in the movement makes you uncomfortable or you don't agree, then look for the positive things. and that's your responsibility, and that's what you can do. Because again, we're talking about, it's like climate change, right? Maybe you don't agree with the guys from Greenpeace who hook themselves to trees, but there's so many other things you can do for the environment, right? So and that's the same with like the feminist movement. If you don't agree with the women that like basically burn buildings, that's okay, but like use your power to sort of like look for the positive, and I'm pretty sure you'll find it, and it could be through books, through articles, podcasts, like. So I like, my recommendation to my male friends is always like, always as a male, like as a guy, as a, like a person who has whole power over women, always try to share the positive of the movement. And if you're not finding it, it's because maybe you haven't looked enough, or maybe you're, or again, you're not doing the job, you just read the news, you don't agree, and your opinion stays there.
So should I?
And
I really like your response, and this makes a lot of sense, right? Try, if you don't agree with this particular action, try to do something on your own that can help the movement and
yeah,
achieve the goal,
or
right?
look for other news. I mean,
Yeah.
like, and it usually happens within in days that there are protests. Again, protests are huge, right?
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure that if you start like sort of liking even feminist collectives, there's women that do art, for example, instead of burning things. So
Yeah,
maybe instead of sharing that sort of like very tendentious or very sort of violent note, maybe try to share a good one, or maybe try to share information or a book that you. So I always say that, I always say, like, I think the problem is that if you just like talk about the bad, that's when we get angry.
makes sense. No, for sure. And look, I'm the kind of person, and I think you probably remember, but we haven't talked in a while, so
Yeah.
hopefully we do. But I'm the type of person that really likes to understand the whole thing, and like to kind of ask questions that are a bit tough sometimes. So, what do you think about the inclusive language in Spanish that's been coming up? Because inclusive language in English and Spanish is a big difference. Like the movement is a little bit different, I think. And first of all, what do you think about the word Latinx?
Oh, that's that's a very that's a, like, I mean, we could do a huge podcast on just that. Well, like about
Just be
inclusive. Eh?
be brief.
Be brief. Well, like, again, inclusive language. I think it is important, especially in Spanish, to name, like, for example, boys and girls when you're saying on a sentence, right? Like, or 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 yeah, some adjectives or some nouns, you could change them to make it inclusive for women. I'm not that intense about like gender neutral words or gender, like, for example, in Spanish is las, los, les, and for me it's hard to use como, like, instead of saying, for example, los niños y las niñas, decir les niñas. And for me that's very tricky, it's hard. um, so for me inclusive language is important, but I also feel like very, and this is just me, I'm not against it at all, I think it's important, but I do think that we have so many other bigger problems right now that I really cannot like fight about like inclusive language at this point. I
Yeah.
hope that one day we reach the point where inclusive language is like our arena of fight and discussion and debate, but for me at this point it is not.
So
So
would you think that in order for this problem to take a priority, you will need to solve the most difficult problem, which is make sure that women are equally
safe.
recognized under the law and
I
say
think in Mexico it's safe. I think like we
safety,
can.
right?
Yes, I think like even to talk about equal pay and things like that. I mean, the problem here is that the like, again,
Yeah, safety.
women are not safe. Safe.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Once that women, 11 women are not killed per day, of course we can start looking at other issues. But for me right now, my priority it's that. And again, I know many women who are focused on many other things, and they're all equally as important because it's so huge, like the problem, that you really need people in all the arenas.
Mhm.
But for me, I mean, if you don't know if you're coming back from your job, then I mean it's hard to worry about sometimes how much you're getting paid at the end of the day.
I mean, I call my mom every night, hoping that
Yeah,
she will pick up. Right?
yeah,
That's a real fear. It's like, shh.
yeah. It's a real fear. Like
Yeah.
it is real.
And well, so last question, I think, for the podcast, and I have taken a lot of your time. It is like 9:30 for you, so you need to go to bed. So last question I want to ask you is, what would you say to 20-year-old Karen?
Oh my god, 20-year-old Karen. Wow, lots of things. I think I would tell her that she's going on a good way, that and that she just needs to follow her heart. That like and it's something that I keep saying myself, but to always follow her heart, and that when you follow when like if little Karen follows her heart, like things will work out. And that's what I would say that.
Mm,
And maybe I would say to stop worrying that much about what other people think, and especially family members, of stop living to family expectations and sort of the life they want for you, and sort of embrace who you are and what you want. I would say that to little Karen.
nice. So one question regarding the podcast: do you think this conversation could be had by a lot of people, and then this could lead to better understanding? Because I think we had a really good conversation
I
regarding,
hope
yeah,
so.
right?
Yes, I hope so. And I'm always open to, if keep talking about this, or if other people have questions. I do believe in education still. Maybe I don't know, maybe in 5 years I will be exhausted and I will be angry, and if people ask me things I'll be angry all the time, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Was I
So
too
yeah.
oblivious with my questions?
No, no, they were very interesting. No, it's always nice to have questions with somebody who's not like very like in the human rights like against sector and everything, because you get used to the language, you get used to like the questions, and at the end of the day, it's great to have these conversations with between people that like have some like that we come from different like professions, careers, but we also grew up in sort of the same country, so like we understand each other. So like it's pretty cool. It was pretty cool. So thank you so much.
Yeah,
I
I
really
don't
liked it.
understand. I don't understand you. I'm sorry. I'm kidding.
I don't know who you are. I don't know why I invited you here.
I'm
No.
glad. Yeah, no, but it was good because I use my marketing lingo with you, and I don't know. I think it kind of conveyed a message, and this is, I mean, the people that are gonna listen to this are probably more business oriented, but I think there will be some people that will have the same lingo that you normally use in Amnesty International. But it is amazing that we had this conversation, and well, also lastly, I wanna thank you because it was your mission that allowed me to be president of ALAS.
Oh,
And we donated money to a Latin American organization,
ah,
actually.
I'm so proud.
Yeah,
No, no, congrats, and I would love to hear how Alice is doing another day or at another time, because
we did.
it's oh
We're doing well. Just, yeah,
it's
that's all you need to know.
it's amazing. No, it's always like I said, it's a part of my life that I will always like sort of remember in a very
Yeah.
nice way that I loved. And yes,
Do you
so
still follow us on Instagram?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, on
Did you
Facebook
see
as
our
well.
post where we said like, "Yay, we celebrated women," and then we send money to like organization that brings women from Latin America to the UK,
That's
basically.
amazing.
Yeah. All
I'll
right,
check it out.
check it out,
But yeah,
Karen. Thank you very much, and
thank you.
for all the listeners, thank you for listening to us. And if you're watching this in YouTube, well, you probably are just listening to us because we don't have a video yet. Uh, but awesome, thank you, and you have a really nice puppy. Okay, good night. Bye bye.
Bye.